Anne says you've acquired more than enough samples. Bring them to me. Quick, quick!
I made a loadout video around the release of Far Cry 5 that covered what I'd found to be the most efficient, optimized selections available to players. Since then, we've seen, through the release of DLC and event weapons, additions to the arsenal we have at our disposal to choose from. I've been saying for over a month now that I would update this loadout upon the arrival of the Martian weapons, so that I would have time to test them out and see how they stack up to my existing loadout. Well, last week, Lost on Mars was finally released to a mixed reception. I made a detailed review of its contents and put it on the channel a few days ago if you're interested, but if you don't want to take the time to watch it, the TLDR is that they missed the mark, and it comes nowhere near filling the potential afforded to it by its concept. Either way, it's out now, and a handful of the DLC specific weapons have been added into the core game's campaign. When I made my first loadout video, whether you agreed with my choices or not, a lot of thought went into why I chose what I did, and the reason this required such a high level of consideration is because the weapons in-game were incredibly well balanced. If one weapon is better than another, it is often because of situational circumstances, or because it's tailored to one style of play over another, not because it's just implicitly stronger across the board. I can't stress enough to you how critical this type of balance is to the overall experience, not just for this game, but also any others in the genre. Without sufficient consideration put towards balancing the game's weapons, players will reliably congregate towards a set, cookie-cutter loadout, the one that's most effective in all circumstances, thereby eliminating any variance or diversity in the way that they can play the game without feeling weak and underpowered should they use weapons that break from the meta. The argument could be made that this isn't important in a game without competitive multiplayer, but I would implore anyone who thinks this to take an honest look at their behavior in the face of such a problem. How often will you intentionally handicap your effectiveness by choosing from the bottom of the barrel, even in a single player experience? It certainly isn't something that I often do, and I'm willing to bet the same applies to you. After mixing the Martian weapons into the main game, Far Cry 5 has a massive balancing problem that unquestionably hurts the overall experience of completing the campaign. Let's start with the selection for heavy weaponry. A trait that all Martian weapons share is that of using battery cells in lieu of traditional ammunition, and I totally understand why this was necessary. In the DLC itself, there are no enemies who use firearms, and as such there are no ammo pickups available. The recharging batteries were a clever mechanic for solving this issue, and were a benefit to the content itself. In the main game, however, this becomes an immediate strength over traditional weapons, both in the sense of costs and utility. Certain ammunition like projectile explosives and 50 cal rounds are both very expensive and have hard restrictions on what you can carry. The Obliterator you see in the footage is a pistol that fires an exploding energy projectile and behaves similarly to a souped up M79 grenade launcher. It has no ammo restrictions whatsoever, provided you insert an incredibly short pause in between shots, has an increased range, a faster projectile speed, and does more damage to both vehicles and standard enemies. I have yet to see it fail to one-shot anything in the game, from bears to attack helicopters, and get this, you can still slot it in your sidearm slot. It isn't even a choice anymore whether you should take it over anything else, because of the sheer amount of functionality it serves. This is a real shame too, because the 50 cal Desert Eagle that was released recently was a strong contender for the slot, and it was both balanced and powerful. And now if you decide to use it instead, you do so knowing that you have purposefully handicapped yourself. In a similar fashion, there is no need whatsoever to take either an AK, my favorite weapon in the game, or anything from the shotgun class, because the laser taser is now able to fill both roles better than anything previously available to us. This is a trace fire pistol that fires a sustained hit scan beam of destruction that you can use to trace fire anything from close to mid range. It will almost instantly kill anything the beam touches, and even vehicles will be destroyed from a well placed 1 to 2 second pulse. It does far more damage than anything else designed for its ranges, and is now in my eyes the strongest weapon in the game, even stronger than the Obliterator we've just discussed. The decision to include this weapon frustrated me immensely, until thank God I realized that they had given it a drawback, and that it torches enemies so effectively it disintegrates them, cancelling out your ability to loot them for cash. I don't know how much of a problem this will end up being for you though, because once you have access to the set of Martian weapons, you'll never need to buy another weapon or any ammo ever again, but you'll still need currency to buy vehicles if you don't already have them all. This weapon is ridiculous, and if you want to immediately turn the game into a cakewalk, you should take it. It's basically a way for you to add a very easy mode to the game. The final 3 weapons are not quite as broken as the first 2, and this falls basically to the fact that they have no attachments available to them. The sniper rifle, thankfully, doesn't have access to the strongest scopes in the game, but still gains the incredible benefit of infinitely recharging ammunition, and also gains 2 other traits unique to it among its class. The weapon is fully hit scan, eliminating the need to either lead shots or account for bullet drop, and it also gets a small AoE field around its impact. This makes it absurdly powerful, but at least it can't do everything better than its contenders. Because of the scopes, the other high impact rifles will serve you better at the longest ranges. The new shotgun gains the same ammunition properties as the others and does an insane amount of damage, some of the best in the game in fact, but is only truly useful at the closest of ranges. It doesn't matter though, because you should always be using one of the new pistols in its place. They're more versatile and equally lethal. Finally, the Martian assault rifle fits in a similar space with similar problems. It does more damage than its competition with a better ammo supply mechanic, but sorely loses the ability to slot attachments, and even if it could, you'd be better served by the laser taser or the Obliterator. There is a single, universal downside to all of these weapons that you may have picked up on already, and that is that they are completely incapable of stealth play, and thank God for that. The recurve bow still has a solid standing in any loadout for this reason, and although it's lost its added functionality of vehicle destruction to the new Obliterator, it is still going to be the best option for clearing an area without detection. It's going to be the only selection that you'd be better suited taking in lieu of an entirely Martian kit. To me at least, this is a sad state we find our arsenal in. My comment section was loaded with people who disagreed with me the first time around, and the reason for this were there were so many weapons that fell so closely in effectiveness and utility that people were able to tailor their loadout to the most minute of details about their playstyle. People were finding a use for nearly every weapon in the game, and because of this, the weapon economy during people's playthroughs flourished, a healthy example of what any shooter should hope for. And I very much hope Ubisoft either tweaks these overpowered properties or restricts their use in some way. Each of these weapons had a weaker variation of themselves in the DLC, and I believe that even just replacing them with these in the main game would help alleviate the problem. I know there will be those among you who disagree with the sentiments I've expressed here, and that is okay. I am fully aware that people who don't purchase the DLC won't have these weapons. I'm fully aware that the majority of people have already beaten the campaign by now and may be on second or even third playthroughs. And I'm fully aware that everyone, including myself, can simply opt out of using the new weapons. That's fine. There will always be reasons to take either position on an issue like this. My ultimate point here, however, is that balance in our games is an important factor in what makes them great, both in multiplayer and single player content. It makes me sad that many of the weapons that I very much loved using, that added personality and character to the game, now need to be cast aside in order to be as effective as possible. I don't think Ubisoft put their best into the Lost on Mars DLC as a whole, and thought to curb this by adding in cheap thrills to the base game that will hurt the game overall after the initial excitement is gone. And that doesn't sit well with me in an age where gamers are more and more often getting the short end of the stick, as pride and integrity are being abandoned by more and more publishers. Let me know what you think, both about the weapons we covered here and even more so about the general trends in game design in the games industry. I'm very interested in hearing your opinions on the matter, but please remember to keep it civil down there. Because of the current state of the game's weapons, I probably won't be making an updated loadout guide in the same vein as the first one. For those who don't own the DLC or who decide to pass on the new weapons on their own, I will soon cover which changes I'm making to the initial kit, but it will probably be a shorter video. I would very much like to make a few videos about industry practices and the general slide towards anti-consumerism that we've seen from many big AAA publishers, while simultaneously giving credit where it's due towards the studios and devs that clearly behave in a way that is beneficial for their customers. If you have any thoughts on this topic or studios you'd like me to look at, please let me know. I would also love to know if you would be interested in seeing the channel cover wider news in the gaming industry as opposed to strictly following specific games or reviews. I want to be able to give you more content overall, and I'm interested in hearing what you'd like to see. I very much appreciate you guys watching as always. I'll catch you in the comments, and take it easy till next time.